where the Astros' Randy Johnson and the Cubs' Sammy Sosa are ready to rock Wrigley Field. Tom Brenneman and Bob Brenly are standing by in the Windy City.
Chip, they are ready to roll in the Windy City, Chicago. Bleacher tickets going for as much as $90 here today. It's a showdown of Central Division rivals. The Cubs trail the Astros for the division lead by 7.5, and a dead heat in the wild card between the Cubs and the New York Mets. And a pleasant good afternoon to you. Alongside Bob Brenly, I'm Tom Brenneman. Welcome, as always, to Baseball on Fox. And, Bobby, a lot of people believe now with Randy Johnson, he's on the mound today, Houston can go to the World Series.
Well, Houston had a pretty good team without Randy Johnson. First in the league in stolen bases, first in runs scored, second in hitting. But the addition of Randy Johnson will allow them to challenge the Braves and the Padres for the best team in the National League.
Well, how about Sammy Sosa, meanwhile, for the Cubs? He's still hunting down Roger Maris.
I tell you, and he's having a lot of fun doing it. But to be honest with you, if the Cubs are going to advance to the postseason, Sammy needs to carry him there the rest of the way.
Well, you're watching Fox Sports, home of the 1998 World Series. It's coming up in October. Will the Astros be there? Will the Cubs be there? We know today, however, the showdown begins.
You're watching Fox Saturday Baseball Game of the Week.
'29-year-old Sammy Sosa, a native of the Dominican Republic, but here in Chicago, they believe he's one of their very own. There is certainly a special love affair taking place here at Wrigley Field with Slammin' Sammy, and watch the reception he'll get from the bleacher fans in right field. He is fun. He is fun.
Who says there's no personality in the game? Sammy just loves playing ball here at Wrigley Field, and the fans love to watch him.
Gave him the big salute. Big ball game here today between the Cubs and the Astros, and Larry Dierker bringing his ball club first place in the Central Division in the MCI starting lineup for Houston. The Killer B, the main man at the top, Craig Biggio, Brad Ausmus behind the plate. Derek Bell is in right field. Slugger Jeff Bagwell, the first baseman. And how about the season by Moises Salou? A career high in home runs. Already 13 better than wearing a Marlins uniform last year. Carl Everett in center, Bill Spires at third, Ricky Gutierrez at shortstop, and the big unit, Randy Johnson, on the mound. And starting it for the Cubs, we thought it might be Kerry Wood. Instead, Don Wengert.
You look at Wengert's numbers on the season, nothing really spectacular, nothing that jumps out at you. The ERA of over 5 is a little lofty. The Cubs have scored a lot of runs in his games. He needs to be absolutely perfect with his stuff. He throws a good four-seam fastball up high in the zone. He'll also sink his fastball, throws a slider and a changeup. Really cannot afford to fall behind the Astros hitters, and has not reached the 7th inning in any start this season.
Kerry Wood started yesterday's game. He did not figure in the decision in a 9th inning win over the San Francisco Giants. Cubs coming off a thrilling 2-game sweep over Dusty Baker's ball club. Wood, the rookie, an 11-game winner this season. We like to remind you, as always, his broadcast is also available in Spanish by utilizing the stat button on your television. Sosa a chance to break the all-time record before this season is over. Home runs in a single season by Roger Maris. Sosa enters play today with 49, second only in the major leagues to Mark McGwire with 51.
And the wind's blowing in from right field here at Wrigley today. Shouldn't bother Sammy Sosa too much. Although he hits the ball to all fields this year. If Sammy gets a hold of one, he'll pound it right through the wind.
Craig Biggio looks at ball one high, and we're underway at Wrigley Field, Chicago. That's a matchup we'll all be anticipating today, and, well, anticipation more times than not is half the fun. Johnson and Sosa locking up. at least 3-4 times before the day is through. Biggio at 322. The spark plug again of this Houston offense, and what an offense it is. First in the league in runs, first in the league in stolen bases, first in the league in on-base percentage. In the air to left center field, hit pretty well. Did he get enough? Back to the wall. Goodbye. Biggio leads off the game for Houston, clubbing his 14th home run of the season, and the Astros a 1-0 lead.
When you talk about the Astros, inevitably you talk about the killer bees, and it all starts with Craig Biggio at the top of that order. He can beat you with the long ball. He can beat you with his legs with a stolen base. Look at that high leg kick, a slider that just hangs up over the inside part of the plate. And as is custom here at Wrigley Field, the ball comes back. Although I think that a lot of the fans, given the magnitude of the home run chase this year, have taken to bringing their own baseballs to the ballpark. You keep the home run ball, you throw the raggedy one back.
A rocket off the bat of Brad Ausmus, right at the second baseman, Manny Alexander. One away. For Biggio, that is his 100th run scored of the season. And he has scored 100 or more runs in each of the last 4 seasons. The last player to do that, Chicago Cub Ryan Sandberg. And there you see Biggio leading the National League as a leadoff man in all 4 of those categories.
You talked about this Astros offense. They put so much pressure on an opposing pitcher. The guy usually ends up working out of the stretch the majority of the afternoon. You have to be concerned with the stolen base because the Astros, as you mentioned, lead the league in stolen bases. Everybody runs. Pitcher is constantly in trouble when they get men on base.
Derek Bell, the one hopper, and Alexander, 2 are gone. Well, we caught up with Don Wengert yesterday and asked him about facing this Houston lineup.
They're a very good hitting team, and they don't miss very many mistakes, and you can't go in with your approach, I'm not going to make any mistakes, because I will. I'll make mistakes, but you just try to limit them and try to be more consistent down in the zone and see what happens.
What has happened so far is a leadoff home run by Craig Biggio. 1-0 Houston, 2 down, nobody on for Jeff Bagwell. Bagwell at 282, 27 home runs and 86 runs batted in. He looks at a ball.
You heard Don Wengert say that the Astros will make you pay for a mistake. Craig Biggio got a hanging slider on the inside part of the plate. Definitely a mistake on the part of Don Wengert, and no mercy on the part of this Astros offense.
Well, really, with the acquisition of Randy Johnson, the Astros all of a sudden have been put on the baseball map, if you will. They were the Central Division champions last year and have been leading by and large all of this year. Little roller up the first base line. Wengert makes the play, puts a tag on Bagwell, and that's that. A leadoff home run by Biggio. So now, in the first inning, we'll get a look at Randy Johnson and Sammy Sosa. 34-year-old Walnut Creek, California native Randy Johnson on the mound for Houston today here at Wrigley Field, and the MCI Chicago Cubs starting lineup. Under manager Jim Riggleman, Lance Johnson in center, Manny Alexander at second. Mark Grace, a left-handed batter. He won't duck Johnson. We know that. Sammy Sosa going for number 50 with his next long one. Glenn Allen Hill in left field. Jose Hernandez having a terrific year at short. Gaetti, the third baseman, just picked up from the Cardinals. Scott Service catches Don Wengert. And Randy Johnson, 3-1 since being traded to Houston from Seattle.
There you get a look at his numbers, racking up high strikeout totals in his 4 starts in the National League. Figures to do pretty much the same today if he has his good fastball. That high 90s, high riding fastball. Got that devastating slider to go with it. You mentioned Mark Grace won't duck him, but he's not going to have a lot of fun today.
Strike one on the outside corner to Lance Johnson.
And he's really turned his year around since the All-Star break. I mentioned how tough he is on left-handers. He's 71 at-bats against Randy Johnson by left-handers this year. Over half of them have struck out. 37 of the 71 at-bats against left-handed hitters have gone down to the strikeout. Quickly ahead of Johnson at 0-2.
249 strikeouts this season overall for Johnson. That's tops in the major leagues. First miss of the game for the Houston left-hander. 1 ball and 2 strikes. There you see what Bobby was talking about pre-All-Star break and ever since. And Johnson barely got a piece of that to stay alive. Unquestionably the blockbuster deal. When Randy Johnson, trade deadline the 31st of July, was acquired by the Astros from Seattle for 3 minor leaguers, Freddie Garcia, Carlos Guillen, and a player to be named later. 2-2. And as uplifting as the acquisition of Johnson was for Houston, how demoralizing must it have been to these Chicago Cubs? The Cubs were 3.5 back at the trade deadline. They're 7.5 back now, and Johnson gone looking. Boy, and Johnson stares down Lance Johnson as he walks back into that dugout.
Well, intimidation is a major part of Randy Johnson's game. That's just some low fog right there. Good fastball at the knees, right on the outside corner. Then after showing a few sliders earlier in the sequence, Lance Johnson was helpless against that fastball on the outside corner.
So now Manny Alexander at 242, 5 home runs, 23 runs batted in. Breaking ball is in there, strike 1.
Randy Johnson has beaten the Cubs a couple of times in his career back when he was with the Expos in 1988. 15 innings pitched, a 1.80 ERA, struck out 15 batters in those 15 innings. That was a long time ago, though. 10 years ago.
And Johnson traded away in the Mark Langston deal from Montreal to Seattle. And if I'm Manny Alexander, I'm not going to do that very often with Randy Johnson on the mound. He starts into his windup, and Alexander backs out of the box. Here comes the 0-2. Fastball, 96 miles per hour.
And you see the reaction of Manny Alexander. That pitch didn't miss the inside corner by very much. And both legs were flying out of that batter's box.
Hit hard, but foul. Mark Gray stands in the on-deck circle. See the Cubs with the Harry Carey caricature on their right sleeve, and then on the left sleeve they wear the words "Hey, hey," signature call of their 2 longtime Hall of Fame broadcasters, Harry Carey and Jack Brickhouse. 2-2 to Alexander, and here it comes. It missed down and in. Again, 96 miles per hour. Johnson, a lot of velocity today, something he did not have his last start at Philadelphia when he got beat by the Phillies on Monday night. And now the payoff. Alexander hanging in there.
And Johnson is consistently down around the knees with that fastball and the slider. Everything he's thrown for the first 2 hitters of this game have been below the middle of the thighs, which may not necessarily work in his favor. It's much easier to get on that fastball if it's down low in the strike zone rather than the high riding 4-seam fastball up around the letters.
Got him swinging. A slider there from Johnson, who's fanned the first 2. So now it's Mark Grace, and we asked him, how about facing the big unit?
He went to USC. I was at San Diego State, and he was really tall then. He's really tall now, you know. But you know, Randy's one of the greatest pitchers to ever strap him up, and you know, I'm a pretty good hitter. So we're gonna see what happens, and you know, if he makes a mistake, I'll hit it. If he doesn't make any mistakes, well, let's go play defense.
Well, you know one thing about Mark Grace, maybe more so, along with Tony Gwynn, 2 left-handed batters in all of baseball that will not give an inch to a left-hander on the mound. Grace waves through that pitch, 1 ball and 1 strike.
Well, we were here very early this morning, Tom, and Mark Grace, as usual, was one of the first Cubs in the clubhouse, and we were kidding him about ducking Randy Johnson. He says, hey, I'll play. If I take an 0 for 4, it won't be the first time. It won't be the last time. He's a professional hitter. He's got a great mental approach to the game. Takes every at-bat on its own merit and doesn't carry it up through the rest of the game with him.
Fastball missed the outside corner, and Johnson a long look in at home plate umpire Joe West. He thought he should have been given the call against one of the best hitters during the decade. Grace fouls it off, and the count goes to 3-2. So now Johnson a strike away from not having to face Sosa here in the opening inning, and a strike away from fanning the side. Pitch. And Grace still in there.
Well, this is what Mark Grace is so good at. Throughout his career, when he gets to 2 strikes, he's able to battle and foul off the tough pitches, force that pitcher to continue to throw balls over the plate, and if you don't, he'll take the walk.
3-2 again. And missed ball 4. That tells you all you need to know about Mark Grace. We welcome those of you watching the New York Mets and the Arizona Diamondbacks from Shea Stadium in New York. Tom Brennan and Bob Brenly at Wrigley Field, Chicago. And the next home run by Sammy Sosa will be number 50 on the year. He trails Mark McGwire in the home run race by 2 after Sosa clubbed number 49 in a win over the Giants yesterday. And what a matchup this is. Randy Johnson runs one up under Sosa's chin. Oh, man, you can't get excited about this. Boy, baseball is doing quite well. Sosa jammed with a pitch from Johnson, and Biggio is there to end the inning. So Johnson walks Grace, takes care of Sosa. 1-0. The big unit comes to Chicago. Sosa, Randy Johnson, the showdown. Round 1 goes to Johnson. He ran one up under Sammy's chin on the first pitch and jammed him on a little pop fly at Biggio. 1-0 Astros as we open the second inning.
Well, here's the pitch to Sammy Sosa. It was up around his head. It was over the plate, but it was up high. You may remember I mentioned Randy Johnson was throwing everything down at the bottom of the strike zone until Sammy came to the plate. First pitch to him was a fastball, neck high, inside part of the plate.
Well, the Astros believe that this man right here should be given serious consideration along with Sosa, McGwire, and others for the National League's most valuable player. Look at those numbers. 36 home runs, 110 knocked in for Moises Alou. He fouls one off down the right field line. 2 balls and a strike.
Striking it rich for Moises Alou. Slugging percentage, home runs, RBIs. He's been doing it all. He's been red hot since the All-Star break.
One of the great acquisitions during the offseason. Alou, the first man traded off the defending world champion Florida Marlins, and he stings one into center field. A base hit by Alou, and he can run as well. Alou, with 11 stolen bases on the season, has only been thrown out twice. And we talked to Larry Dierker a couple of weeks ago, Bobby. The light is always green in Houston.
We asked him, who on your team has the green light? And he laughed and looked at us and said, well, they all do. Anytime these guys feel they can steal a base, if they get a good read on that pitcher's move and the game situation calls for a stolen base, they've got the green light to run. If Larry Dierker does not want them to run, he'll put on a do not run sign.
Carl Everett has had a terrific season for the Houston Astros, batting at .314, 12 homers and 62 knocked in. He's down a strike. Everett, a career .245 hitter. Last season had a lot of off-the-field problems, batted only .248. And another quiet move made by the general manager, Gary Hunsicker, to improve this Houston team. It's one thing to win a division, he felt. It's another thing to contend for the World Series. And the Houston Astros very much in the thick of that race. Popped it up. It's playable for Scott's service. One away. Well, we had a chance to ask Larry Dierker about the new-look Astros compared to the team a year ago.
Last year, there were times when Biggio and Bagwell struggled, and you know, we depend so much on them. If they weren't doing it, everyone else felt the pressure, and they weren't doing it either. Now, I don't think any one guy in the lineup feels responsible. Like, I got to do it. I got to, because if I don't do it, no one else will. Now there's enough guys that, you know, you really have, honestly, have that feeling that if this guy doesn't get it done, the next guy has a pretty good chance to pick it up for him and get it done.
A much better balanced ball club this year, the Houston Astros. In the past, it's been the Killer Bees, Biggio, Bagwell, and Bell. And if those guys happen to be in a slump, the team went into a slump. But with the addition of Moises Alou, the emergence of Carl Everett, Billy Spires at third base, part of a platoon that's had a great year offensively, they're getting offense all the way up and down this lineup.
Spires, the batter, at 272, a pair of home runs, 36 runs batted in. He's ahead 1-0. There goes Alou, and it's drilled into right field. A base hit. Alou makes a turn on his way to third as Sosa juggles the ball in right field. So the Astros already a 1-0 lead. Runners on the corners and only one out.
Now Alou running on the pitch. Astros love to get those runners in motion, open up some holes in the infield. Alou, here's the crack of the bat, picks up the ball in right field, and he's around to third base with one out in the inning. He can score on a sac fly. Of course, Don Wengert's going to try to get the ground ball, attempt to turn a double play. And Ricky Gutierrez leads the Astros in grounding into double plays with 15 on the season. He was a late addition to the lineup. Tim Bogar originally in the lineup at shortstop, and about a half an hour or so before game time, Bogar was taken down. Gutierrez was inserted.
Gutierrez got off to a great start this season. He's been in a horrendous slump of late. But this is going to bring in a run. They'll get the out at first base. And scoring is Alou. Give Gutierrez his 38th batted in. Spires on to second. 2-0 Houston in the second. Well, all of us got used to watching Randy Johnson pitch in the American League. He never came to the plate as a batter. And he has one hit in 13 trips since coming over to the Astros with an RBI.
You ever watch those nature specials when they show a giraffe bending over trying to get a drink of water? It's kind of what Randy Johnson looks like at the plate. He doesn't quite look comfortable up there.
Well, he's down a strike.
Now, you kids at home, do not try this. I mean, you almost have to hit his bat.
He electrified the crowd with his base hit on a 3-2 pitch from Eric Plunk at the Astrodome. Little floater into right field, his first major league hit since '89.
Well, this is not a replay of the first swing. It certainly looks a lot like it. You see the big unit on the back of his shoes.
Well, at least he put the bat on the ball. The bat went further than the ball. And the inning is over. But Johnson's more worried about taking the ball back to the mound here in the second with a 2-0 lead.
Well, Randy Johnson with one of his few National League at-bats. This is the area right here where you have to throw the ball for Randy Johnson to hit it, because this part of his body is going that way. Slider on the outside corner, just missed it. And he just missed it again. So what do? Throw your bat at the next one. That's a nice piece of hitting right there with 2 strikes. Protect that plate.
And that was after a lengthy conversation with Bob Brenly about improving his batting just prior to game time today.
I'll tell you a scary thought. Randy Johnson getting an opportunity to go to the plate and hit may make him a better pitcher. Because when you stand in that batter's box and see what it looks like to try to hit a slider on the outside corner, to try to hit a high fastball, you can take that with you when you go back out to the mound. I mean, Randy Johnson is going to see the game from a different perspective in that batter's box. It may change the way he goes about his business on the mound. Not that there's anything wrong with the way he's been going about it.
I was going to say, that's real bad news for National League hitters the last month and a half of this season, and anybody in the postseason. 1-2 to Glenn Allen Hill.
Well, talking about the last couple months of the season, I mean, obviously Randy Johnson was a big pickup for what he's done in the past. And based on the numbers of the past, the Astros are going to get their money's worth out of Randy Johnson. The month of August in the last 5 years, his record is 11-3. In the month of September in the last 5 years, he's 13-0 with an ERA of under 2. I guess you'd call that a strong finish.
Yes, you would. Glenn Allen Hill lifts one way back to left field. Alou watches it fly. But Glenn Allen Hill hammered a grand slam in the opening game of the Giants series against reliever Julian Taveras. And now he goes way back on his former teammate from earlier this year in Seattle.
All right, Glenn Allen Hill always takes a very short, violent swing at the ball. When he makes contact, he hits the ball as hard as anybody in baseball. Got a breaking ball out over the plate. Very short, abbreviated swing. Pow, right there. He's definitely in there for his bat.
So what are you saying?
I'm saying he's one up on the game right now. But they haven't hit any to him yet.
Well, speed pitch in there. Strike 1 and 1 to Jose Hernandez.
It appeared to be a slider from Randy Johnson. Brad Ausmus wanted it down and in. Johnson left it up and out over the plate where Glenn Allen Hill could extend his arms, and Randy Johnson didn't like what he saw. Well, we heard Don Wengert talk about making mistakes against the Astros, and they'll make you pay. Glenn Allen Hill made Randy Johnson pay for a mistake slider.
2-1 to Hernandez. In the air, foul ground, first base side. Biggio over in foul territory just across the fair line, and that's the first out in the inning. So that'll be Gary Gaetti. Gaetti signed 4 days ago as a free agent on his 40th birthday. He had been designated for assignment by St. Louis on August the 8th, was released on August the 14th. In 91 games with the Redbirds this season, he had a .265 average, 11 homers, and 43 batted in. 1-1 to Gaetti. On the inside corner, a strike, 1-2.
I think Gaetti was a good pickup for the Cubs. You get a look at his career profile. He's had an outstanding career. Allowing him to play third base, they can move Jose Hernandez over to shortstop, gives the Cubs a much better offensive lineup. Jeff Plowser has struggled throughout most of the year. And by moving Hernandez to shortstop, Gaetti at third base, it gives the Cubs a little more stock offensively.
Gaetti, one of only 5 active major league players to have at least 2,000 hits along with 300 home runs. He checked his swing. It did not go around on the appeal to Jeff Nelson. And the other 4 active players in that category, Cal Ripken Jr., Harold Baines, Chili Davis, and Joe Carter. There's ball 4. Second walk of the game issued by Johnson. Scott Service, a former Astro, we asked his thoughts on the pickup of the big unit.
It's not. I think it's lifted their position players. I played with Houston for a while. I know those guys very well, Baggs and Bidge, and know what kind of players they are. And when you get a boost like that.
Walk in the second.
He's getting some pitches up over the heart of the plate, especially when he's ahead in the count. That's normally when Randy Johnson is death on hitters in the National League, or the American League for that matter. And with 2 strikes, he makes a mistake, gets a ball up over the zone, and Scott Service whacked it into left field.
Well, Don Wengert threw a couple of sliders for Randy Johnson. You think Wengert's going to see a slider from Randy Johnson?
He may not waste a slider. Wengert figures to be up there putting down a sacrifice bunt, which is no easy task either. Bagwell already drawn in about 15 feet, now 20 feet in front of first base. defensive alignment, it looks like the Astros are going to try to get the force play at third base on Gary Gaetti, who does not run very well. Third baseman Billy Spires was playing back at third base to cover the bag. Bagwell was right on top of the hitter as the pitch was delivered.
0-2 now to Wengert. And you look at the speed on the bases for the Cubs. Gaetti at second, service at first. They move roughly the speed of a glacier out there. So very easily the runner at third could be cut down if a bunt is put down.
In Wengert's first 2 attempts here, he's tried to bunt the ball to the first base side. That's where Jeff Bagwell is standing right in his face. He needs to bunt the ball down the third base line.
They're going to get the out at third, but Johnson can't get right, and he does, barely in time. 40,000 would-be umpires disagreeing with the call made by Jeff Kellogg.
Well, Randy Johnson's fastball comes into play right here. As you mentioned, he had trouble finding the grip on the ball, waits till the last instant to deliver, and just does get Gary Gaetti at third base. So you think Sammy's into the ball game?
Oh, yeah.
Number 1 star on the team, number 1 cheerleader on the bench.
Runners at first and second. The Cubs trail Houston and Randy Johnson 2-1. And leadoff man Lance Johnson, who went down on strikes in the first inning, takes high and in for a ball. Johnson's allowed a run on 2 base hits. He's walked 2 and fanned 2. And that's a call very early in the game he is not getting from Joe West. That slider on the outside corner to a left-handed batter. For that matter, the slider on the inside corner to a right-handed batter. A couple of very close calls against Gaetti. And now 2-1 to Johnson.
Well, this is not the first time Joe West has seen Randy Johnson. Of course, Joe West has been only a National League umpire, and Randy Johnson had some time with the Expos back in the late 80s. So Joe West has seen the big unit on the mound before. He's familiar with his stuff. And, of course, I'm sure he's seen him on television over the years in his days with the Mariners.
95-mile-per-hour fastball there from Johnson, and the count even at 2-2. Tying run at second, go ahead run at first. And there's strike 3 on the outside corner to retire the side. But the Cubs chalk up a run in the second. A long ball by Glenn Allen Hill. We go to the third. 2-1 Houston. You are watching the Cubs on Fox. Well, Sammy Sosa hit number 50 before this day is through. He's 0 for 1 so far against Randy Johnson. Cubs trail the Astros 2-1, and here's Biggio led off the game with a home run to left center field.
Well, Sammy may hit one, but I'd be really surprised if he hit that target out there. That's got to be about 600 feet from home plate.
A ball, a strike to Biggio.
There you see that target way up there on top of the building across the street.
Where you used to hit him.
Oh, yeah, all the time. Of course, I was standing out on Waveland Avenue at the time.
With a fungo. 1-1 to Biggio, and he looks at a strike on the outside corner from Wengert.
Well, there have been some long home runs hit here at Wrigley Field. When you get that wind blowing out, those big power hitters with the uppercut swing that get the ball up into the jet stream. Dave Kingman used to hit some monster shots here at Wrigley.
Of course, Mark McGwire put on a show here in the Cardinals series earlier in the week. He had 2 home runs in 1 game. Well, and a very nice relationship being developed between Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire during this chase. Certainly those two, along with Ken Griffey Jr., the only people on the planet that have any understanding truly of what it's like to be like in their position. I mean, they're followed everywhere they go. They're constantly asked about the chase for the Roger Maris home run record. And Sosa will tell you point blank, McGwire is my favorite player. He always has been.
He's the man. That's what Sammy keeps saying. McGwire's the man.
Biggio, a swing and a miss, and Service fires down the base, one away. Coors game break time. Let's go to our buddy Chip Carey at our Fox Network Center.
All right, Tom and Bob. Well, wild cards race implications today. The Diamondbacks in New York. Andy Bennis with a double down the left field line scores 2 Diamondbacks. Then Andy Fox. This guy's a very good and versatile ball player for Arizona. He doubles home 2 more. So the Diamondbacks in front of the Mets, 4-0 as they head to the bottom of the second. And Tommy, as you know, you don't want to mess with those Diamondbacks. Back to you in Chicago.
I believe it, Chip. You cannot fool around with the Arizona Diamondbacks and Andy Fox. The Fox Network's favorite player.
You got that right. He's having some kind of year for the Diamondbacks.
Popped up by Brad Ausmus to the right side. And Grace has it, 2 away. Well, we are, I guess, keeping Chip Carey's home in order here today, Bob. This is where Chip works, broadcasting all the Chicago Cubs games.
We have to leave him a little treat before we leave town.
I think you're right. Him and Steve Stone, we have heard enough of their grief in one fashion or another through the entire season. Our ongoing debate about the National League's Rookie of the Year. Of course, they think it should be Kerry Wood. We think it should be Travis Lee.
Well, it'll be interesting to see how both of those guys finish down the stretch. I mean, Brad Fulmer from Montreal, certainly a candidate, along with Todd Helton. I guess it's whoever finishes best. Kerry Wood has bounced back from what was apparently just a dead arm, a tired arm. He's come back with several strong outings in a row after that dead arm syndrome. He figures to finish strong. And he's going to have to if the Cubs want to win that wild card. They need their horse to go out there and gobble up innings and keep him in the ball game.
Of course, he had that remarkable performance back on May the 6th against the Astros. 20 strikeouts to tie a major league record. Then he struck out 11 more Astros last weekend. There's a base hit into center field by Derek Bell with 2 away. Bell with 11 stolen bases has been thrown out 3 times. And the inning stays alive for Bagwell.
I will echo the sentiments of a lot of the Astros players when I say that Kerry Wood, that was the most dominating pitching performance I have ever seen at any level. For one given day, Kerry Wood had every pitch working in his arsenal, was throwing every pitch exactly where he wanted to put it, and the Astros were just completely and totally overmatched. And as we've said throughout the early part of this game, this is a strong offensive ball club on that first base dugout, and they look like little leaguers against Kerry Wood that day.
The American League All-Star team would have looked like little leaguers that day against Kerry Wood.
I can't argue with that.
Speaking of All-Stars, Jeff Bagwell, former National League Most Valuable Player in 1994. Got jammed with that pitch from Wengert, and a harmless pop fly at Hernandez. First scoreless inning for Don Wengert. We move to the last of the third. 2-1 Houston.
Babe Ruth is up. He looks sluggish. Martin, all he's doing is sweating. I'm not sweating, and I'm wearing a turtleneck. You're fired. Jackson's out to talk to Ruth.
What's wrong, babe? I was out all night, Reg. Try this. Lipton Brisk iced tea. That's brisk, baby. Give it a ride, babe.
Holy cow, what a shot!
Get a case of that stuff for the postseason.
Andy Johnson at Wrigley Field against the Chicago Cubs on Fox Saturday Baseball. 2-1 Houston in front as the Cubs come to bat here in the last of the third inning. Glenn Allen Hill a home run against Johnson, who has fanned 3. He has walked 2 and allowed 1 run on 2 hits. 1-1 to Alexander. Randy Johnson is 10.5 strikeouts per 9 innings pitched, the best in Major League history. Second is Nolan Ryan at 9.6. And third, arguably the greatest left-hander in the history of baseball, Sandy Koufax at 9.4. He threw that one right by Alexander. And now the 2-2. 3 balls and 2 strikes. Alexander worked to count full his first time up before going down swinging. Johnson rocks, kicks, fires, and it's in and out of the mid. And may have got a piece of the arm as well of Brad Ausmus.
The catchers have that helmet, the mask, the chest protector, the shin guards, and invariably that ball will hit an unpadded area. The foul ball catches Brad Ausmus in the right bicep muscle. Instant Charlie horse. That right bicep, he looks like Arnold Schwarzenegger right now. Things starting to swell up a little bit.
3-2 again. And it's ball 4 to Alexander from the hard-throwing Randy Johnson. You know, we were talking about hard-throwing left-handers through the history of baseball, and Bobby, it's hard to believe any better than Sandy Koufax.
Well, you talk to people that played against and with Sandy Koufax. They say he was without a doubt the most dominating pitcher of his era, and there were a lot of dominating pitchers in that era. Cubs broadcaster Ron Santo, former great third baseman for the Cubs, tells a wonderful story. The Cubs advance scout thought they picked something up in Sandy Koufax's delivery out of the stretch. They thought they could call his pitches when he went into the stretch. Koufax went out through a no-hitter.
He never pitched out of the stretch. Blowing into Mark Grace, ball 1. Grace drew a walk his first time up. Sammy waiting. On the ground to the right side, Biggio will play to first. Had a hard time finding the handle. And the tying run advances into scoring position. We welcome those of you watching the New York Mets and the Arizona Diamondbacks. They're standing and cheering, anticipating Sammy Sosa round 2 in his showdown with Randy Johnson. Out on Waveland Avenue, all the fans waiting to catch that number 50 home run, and there was a 50 home run cut that came up empty.
That was a big swing by Sammy Sosa, but a much more controlled swing than Sammy Sosa of last year or years past. He still takes a big hack, but his head is staying on the ball, his shoulders staying in there. Nothing wrong with swinging hard as long as you keep your head on the ball.
Johnson, this is inside to Sosa. 1 ball and 1 strike. Any way possible imaginable to get number 50. They're hanging out of the apartment buildings out on Waveland Avenue. Whoa, a big swing and a miss. 1 and 2.
Power against power. I've got a good fastball. You're a good fastball hitter. Let's see who wins. Man, generates a lot of power out of that crouch. The hands held down low. The uppercut swing. In the past, you throw Sammy Sosa anything spinning right now and you'd get him out.
1-2. Johnson challenged him, and Sosa right on it, fouled it straight back to the screen.
Sosa has become a much better breaking ball hitter this year. If you try to throw a breaking ball for a strike, it's a pitch that he really hammers hard. This is a fastball right down the heart of the plate. And Sammy got the head of the bat on it that time and fouled it straight back.
1 ball, 2 strikes. Johnson looks in for the sign from Ausmus. Gives the nod of the head, okay, and here she comes, and he got him swinging. Round 2 goes to Randy Johnson as well, and 2 are out in the inning.
There's how the big unit goes after Sammy. Fastball down low and away. Fastball on the inside corner. He wanted that pitch. Another fastball a little bit higher on the outside plate. That was the best pitch Sammy had to hit in the sequence. And next to the last one, he fouled it straight back. Johnson comes back with another heater on the outside corner to strike him out. All fastballs.
So for 2 is popped to Biggio and struck out. But Glenn Allen Hill touched up Johnson for a solo home run leading off the second inning. Tying run at second base. And Hill tardy on that swing. A 95-mile-an-hour heater from Johnson. It's 0-2. That's something National League pitchers have tried to do all year long, cool off Sosa. Alexander leads at second. And Hill hanging in there, fouls it back. 1 ball, 2 strikes. We mentioned earlier that Glenn Allen Hill and Randy Johnson teammates earlier this season in Seattle. Hill claimed off waivers from the Mariners on July the 6th by the Cubs. And that missed inside, 2-2.
And from Randy Johnson's body language, there's been several pitches already in this ball game that he felt he should have got a called strike. The fastball in the inside part of the plate to Sammy Sosa, and that last pitch to Glenn Allen Hill, the most recent ones where Randy Johnson has slumped his shoulders and had a long look in at Joe West.
Tries the outside corner, doesn't get the call there. It's 3-2. Fifth full count of the game already by Johnson, piling up the pitches here through the first 3 innings. He leads 2-1, last of the third. Alexander at second, 2 away, and here's a payoff. In the air, Ausmus in foul ground near the bricks with room, and that's out. A leadoff walk, nothing doing against Johnson. End of 3. 2-1 Houston at Wrigley Field. We're back at Wrigley Field, Chicago. Houston, a 7.5-game lead over these Cubs in the National League Central Division. And a 2-1 lead in the game. First pitch swinging, Moises Alou deep to the wall in left field. Goodbye. Alou has clubbed his 37th home run. His 111th RBI. And Bobby, he just keeps saying to people, talk about McGuire, talk about Sosa. I'm right there with him for the league MVP.
Well, what a pickup Moises Alou has been. I love to watch that guy hit. He is so still at home plate. Very little movement, if any. Locked in there, just waiting to see the ball and react. A good, quick uppercut swing. We mentioned the wind blowing in from right field. It has turned around a little bit. It's blowing more across right now. Seemed to help that high fly ball just get into the bleachers out there in left field.
3-1 just like that. Houston in front. Carl Everett looks at ball 1. Well, we mentioned earlier that when the Marlins broke up that championship team at the end of last season, Alou was the first to go. And the man who pulled the trigger on the deal for the Astros, their general manager, Gary Hunsaker, kind enough to join us here in the booth, and he's got to love the looks of this. Of course, he's seen it all year.
Well, a lot of things are going our way right now. It's been fun. It's got a chance to be a special season for us.
Why Moises Alou?
Moises has always been one of my personal favorites to start with. Even as a young kid growing up, he had always had special physical talents. He seems to have the knack of really coming up big in the clutch situations. That's one thing last year that our club lacked, and when Moises was available, we didn't hesitate to jump on it.
You know, Larry Dierker made a comment earlier. He felt like that maybe some of your players, the Killer Bees in particular last season, if they weren't going good, chances are the team wasn't going to go good.
Well, that's true. Historically, Bagwell has been the guy that this club has operated around, and when Bags was not swinging the bat well, it was hard for this club to score runs. I think with Alou and this guy hitting right here, Carl Everett, they've both taken the pressure off of Bagwell.
We'll talk a little bit about what it means to you building a ball club. When your superstar players, your Biggios and Bagwells, those guys play the game right. They play hard. They're the first guys to the ballpark every day. They're the last guys to leave. You never have to tell them to run out a ground ball. How easy does that make it to build a club when your superstars are that kind of players?
Well, it makes all the difference in the world. I've been on clubs where we've had a lot of high-profile talent that just didn't work, and it takes more than just putting a lot of talent together to put a winning club together. And I think that getting the right kind of leadership is critical.
Well, what a turnaround from last season. The Astros, 12 players on their playoff roster from '97 acquired after you took over in November of '95. But just look at some of the deals since '96. A lot of people thought Biggio was going to leave. Some thought Bagwell was going to leave. And then you're all of a sudden able to bring in some other key components. And maybe the biggest of all, Randy Johnson. And Bobby, you and I were in Seattle that night. We were doing the Mariners game the next day. And I think everybody was in shock that you guys were the team that wound up getting him. How did that happen?
Well, I'm not sure exactly. Obviously, we were the dark horse even to compete for a talent like Randy Johnson. And this club historically has been in financial trouble seemingly from the start of its existence back in the 60s. So the franchise has never been able to even compete for this kind of talent. When you put all that together, I think that was the shock that even the fans and even our players in the clubhouse reflected when we were able to pull this off. And it all starts with our owner, Drayton McClain, stepping up and allowing us to pursue an acquisition like this.
Obviously, the owner did make that kind of commitment to the franchise, but you know, there were so many stories, so many rumors about the Yankees, Hideki Irabu or Ramiro Mendoza, and you heard about the Indians, maybe Brian Giles, and there are all kinds of other names. Obviously, you read those kind of things, but you have a conversation with Woody Woodward, the Seattle general manager. When did you get a feeling that maybe you guys are the ones to actually get him before the clock strikes midnight?
About 10 minutes before midnight. I really thought we were out of it all along. That whole day, Seattle really was trying to acquire a starting pitcher that could go back into the rotation, and we just didn't match up there. Or I should say we're not willing to part with the starting pitcher that they could have. And when you, like you said, you're competing against the Yankees and the Indians, it's a long shot to start with. And in the end, I think we were just fortunate that for whatever reason, we were able to pull this off.
You know, you made the big deal for Randy Johnson. Obviously, you got him for the physical skills that he has and what he could bring to your ball club on the field. But did the idea of sending a message to the rest of the division, did that play into it at all, the emotional impact that that would have on the Cubs and the other teams that are chasing you?
Well, to be honest with you, the message I wanted to send were to the guys in our clubhouse, especially the guys like Biggio and Bagwell that have grown up in this organization and really never been close to being able to compete with the top teams in the game, mostly for financial reasons. Those guys leave it out there in the field every day, and it's great when management has an opportunity to say, boys, we're all in this together. We just did something to help us compete. Let's go get them. And I think it really has lifted this club emotionally to another level.
Well, obviously, there's a long way to go in this season, as Jim Riggleman will come out and visit Don Wengert. Do you believe now that you are ready to compete at the same level? Because I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's pretty fair to say that if you didn't make the Randy Johnson deal, you had a really good ball club, but maybe not there in the Atlanta and San Diego mix. Are you there now, or were you there before?
Well, Tom, as you know, to even win the division, but to get further than winning the division in postseason, a lot of things have to go right. A lot of crazy things can happen in a short season, and I think the emotions and the hype over this latest acquisition has probably gotten ahead of itself. I mean, we haven't won anything yet, right. So we need to focus on winning that division. But on paper, and I emphasize on paper because we don't play this game on paper, we feel confident that whether it's a 5-game series, a 7-game series, or the rest of the season, we now can go out there every day and can compete with the best in the game.
3-1 ball game. Houston in front of the Cubs. We're in the top of the 4th inning. Bill Spires on it first. Gutierrez knocked in a run with a ground ball to the shortstop. Back into Houston's 2nd inning.
You know, for years, your ballpark down there in Houston has been known, at least in my playing days, as a pitcher's haven. It's a little more hitter-friendly now, but what's the new ballpark in Houston going to be like?
Well, the new park's going to be interesting. It's going to have something for everybody. It's going to have a lot of nuances, a lot of retrofit characteristics of some of the old ballparks. So it will be a hitter's ballpark in some respects and a pitcher's ballpark in others. For instance, there's going to be a very short left field wall. It's only going to be 315 feet away.
Well, that's a real surprise with your lineup.
But like Fenway, it's going to be 18 or 20 foot high. And then you go, as you work towards center field, you're going to have a 430-foot center field with an embankment, kind of like some of the old ballparks with a flagpole actually in fair territory.
Really?
So it's going to be a real exciting ballpark. The timing of everything right now has been critical for us because not only winning the division last year, but an opportunity to do something that this franchise has never done and win back-to-back divisions this year, a new ballpark on the rise, and suddenly Houston has an opportunity to emerge as a baseball town.
Huge crowds have already turned out in the 2 games that Randy Johnson has pitched at the Astrodome as Gutierrez takes way inside. And you figure to put a lot more fannies in the seats, so to speak, the last month and a half of the season. And, you know, you look ahead to what the last month and a half will bring. How do you feel your schedule shakes down for the last month plus?
Well, the schedule probably is neutral for us. Certainly, it does not hurt us. We have a lot of games at home, and that's where we've been most effective.
Right now, for a Coors game break, let's go to our buddy Chip Carey quickly at our Fox Network Center.
All right, Tom and Bob, thanks. The Mets have decided to mess with the Diamondbacks. Andy Bennis was up 4-0. Mike Piazza just hit a grand slam for New York. 6 runs in the second, and the Arizona lead erased. It's now 6-4. 4 slams for Piazza. Ouch. Back to you in Chicago.
When Mike Piazza catching fire at the right time for the New York Mets. Now, Jerry, we talked about all the great things you've done. I know you haven't been working on Randy Johnson with his batting.
I don't take the credit for that. I don't think he's looking forward to the times when he has to get in the plate, get in the box.
Well, you know, Bobby, you brought up a good point. And I don't know if Jerry had a chance to hear it about now a different perspective from Randy Johnson as a batter.
Yeah, he gets a chance to see what opposing hitters have seen from him all these years. He actually has to stand in the batter's box now and see what it looks like, and I felt that perhaps that would give him a different perspective when he goes out to the mound, knowing what a hitter goes through at the plate.
Well, I know there was some speculation that because of that he might become less aggressive as a pitcher because he's got to take his turn and stand in the box. I don't think that's happened up to this point, but I know it's not one of Randy's favorite things to do.
Well, Jerry, we can't thank you enough for coming in. Congratulations. You've done a remarkable job.
Thank
you very much. Pride of Collegeville, Pennsylvania. General manager of the Houston Astros, the first place Houston Astros, led by maybe the MVP, Moises Alou.
Hey, throwing the ball good. Let's get your ground ball right here. We'll get out of this inning right here. Hey, Manny, if they run, it's hit and run. He's not going to straight steal with him, so hold your position as long as you can. He's going to hit the ball somewhere. Hold your position. You can switch the coverage based on what the pitch is if you want, but if he misses, you can be late getting the bag. We still get this guy.
Our Fox sounds of the game. We thank Jim Riggleman for wearing a microphone today here at Wrigley Field, Chicago, where the Astros lead the Cubs 3-1. Cubs bat here in the bottom of the 4th against Randy Johnson. A ball, a strike to Hernandez, and what a year Jose Hernandez has had. Started the season as the jack of all trades for the Cubs. He was very upset during the wintertime when the Cubs signed Jeff Blauser as a free agent to play shortstop and traded for Mickey Morandini to come in and take over at second base for the retired Ryne Sandberg. And Hernandez career highs in every single category, including the big blow in the game against Rob Nen yesterday.
That players call this throwing a hand grenade. Just cued the ball off the end of the bat. You can see him trying to coach it fair down that right field line, and it just does land fair, driving home Mark Grace with the winning run. They lobbed a grenade out there in right field. You talk to people close to the Chicago Cubs, and I asked Steve Stone, the broadcaster for the Cubs, what's Jose Hernandez's best position? And Stoney said, let me put it this way, as Jose watches a slider in the strike zone for a called strike 3. Steve Stone says he's our best third baseman. He's our best shortstop. He's our best center fielder. He's our best left fielder. And he's probably our best second baseman. So, as you said, a very versatile player. which is a very valuable thing for Jim Riggleman to have, a guy that can play a variety of positions and still provide some offense, but a guy that deserves a shot at earning a position on a full-time basis.
Well, by and large, he's gotten that now at third base, although Gary Gaetti has been acquired within the last week. But Hernandez still figures to see the majority of the playing time. And, well, Jeff Blauser has had a terrible offensive year. I mean, he was coming off a career year with Atlanta. Cubs signed him to a big deal as a free agent. And things have just not worked out for Blauser. So as you pointed out earlier, Bobby, maybe the signing of Gaetti means Hernandez sees a lot more time at shortstop. And Gaetti plunked in the back by Johnson. And you know he didn't mean to do that on an 0-2 pitch.
Well, this is his second batter that he's drilled since coming over to the National League. He just tries to throw a hard fastball down low and in. It got away from him a little bit. Gaetti takes it off the back of the thigh. Boy, that'll leave a beautiful bruise right there.
A rainbow of colors.
Yes, it will.
See Jeff Blauser with a helmet on down in the Chicago dugout. Don Wengert, his spot due up next in the on-deck circle, and Wengert now walking back into the corner of the dugout.
There's been no activity in the Cubs bullpen.
Well, for a little while there in the last half inning, Terry Adams threw. Don't know if he'd be ready. That's a foul ball down the left field line by Service.
I'd be surprised if Adams was loose enough to enter the ball game. Of course, if they do choose to take Wengert down for a pinch hitter, Adams will get the time for the rest of this half inning to get loose in the bullpen. Then he'll get his 8 pitches on the game mound. So, you know, if he's close enough where he can get ready in 15 pitches, then perhaps they will take Wengert down for a pinch hitter.
One to Scott Service, and Johnson sends Gaetti back to the bag.
For this combination of Gary Gaetti running at first base and Scott Service at the plate is a double play waiting to happen. Two of the slower runners in the league. And Gaetti just took one off the back of his left hamstring, so he's probably not feeling real springy over there at first base right now.
Oh, no, he feels real good. Two and two. Randy Johnson won his first 3 starts after coming over in the trade from Seattle, and then finally lost his last outing at Philadelphia on an extremely hot and humid night. We just left Philadelphia this morning. Harry Callis, our longtime friend and longtime announcer of the field, said Johnson looked like he walked out of the shower by the end of the first inning, just covered with sweat. In the air, a long run for Biggio, but he'll get there in fair ground. 2 away in the inning. We like to remind you, tomorrow it's turn back the clock night. Does that mean that you don't have arthritis in the knees? Turn back the clock night?
I'd feel a lot better getting out of bed in the morning.
Bouncing ball to short, force out at second, ends the inning. We go to the 5th. The big unit in front of the Cubs, 3-1. The 31st is the night Randy Johnson traded his Seattle uniform for a Houston uniform. Everyone's shocked in Seattle.
So it was a surprise to hear Houston. It was more of a surprise to hear that they just basically gave him away for nothing. I mean, no knock on the 2 guys that we got. I mean, no knock on them personally, but that's not a good trade. That's a horse trade.
That's all you need to know about David Segui's feelings. Randy Johnson was traded away. Freddie Garcia, Carlos Guillen, and a player to be named later. But boy, oh boy, are they thrilled to have Randy Johnson in Houston. His home starts have become big-time events. The Astros drew 52,071 his first start. Almost 41,000 at the Astrodome his second outing. And they average roughly about 26,000 fans a game. Texas icon Nolan Ryan watched from the first row behind the plate in Johnson's second start. ZZ Top leader Dusty Hill, your old buddy Bobby, he was there that night to see Randy Johnson. And into center field, the throw goes from Service. Biggio coming to third, and he's safe there. So give Biggio his 41st stolen base of the season. He goes to third on the throwing error by Service, and the running Astros coming at the Cubs again here in the fifth.
Now Biggio with a false start and then went ahead on his break to second base. The head first slide quickly to his feet and on to third base. A very ugly slide at third, but hey, that was without a doubt a bad throw by Scott Service. The shortstop Jose Hernandez was very late getting over to cover the bag at second base. I don't know that he would have been able to get that high throw anyway, but a very late break to cover the bag.
It's going to be it for Don Wengert. He will leave with Biggio at third and nobody out, trailing 3-1. Terry Adams on the pitch. We'll be right back. Biggio at third base, nobody out. Houston leading 3-1 here in the top of the fifth inning. And now on the pitch, right-hander Terry Adams, who's certainly taken his share of lumps this season. Brad Ausmus, the batter. Infield in, ball one away.
Adams was very good early in the season, but he's allowed 11 earned runs in 15 2/3 innings in his last 15 outings since the All-Star break.
Adams at one time thought to be the closer of the future for the Cubs. Good pitch there to Ausmus, who was looking for something hard, didn't get it. 2-1 to the Houston catcher, with the former Houston catcher turned second baseman now at third base. Biggio will stay put. Hernandez throws out Ausmus for the first out of the inning.
Mentioned Craig Biggio with that hard slide into third base. Watch his right leg, the one that's underneath right now. Normally a player will put that left foot down on the bag and pop up, but as you can see, Biggio's front foot went right over the bag. His right foot got hooked on the bag. This is a very dangerous slide right here. He could have been injured very badly there at third base. Of course, he had his consecutive game streak stopped a couple of weeks ago at 494 consecutive games. Well on his way to starting another streak.
Infield still in with one away, and Biggio at third, and now Derek Bell, the batter. Bell is grounded to second and single to center. And he looks at a strike from Adams.
Derek Bell leads the Astros with 9 sacrifice flies on the season. Very good situational hitter. He used to be a very aggressive overswinger at the plate as well. Really cut down on his swing. He settled into one approach at home plate. He doesn't change stances from pitch to pitch. And probably looking for something up in the zone right here that he can lift in the air and get that runner home from third base.
A career season for Derek Bell already. Not only those numbers, but 90 runs batted in. He's behind Adams at 0-2 against a drawn-in infield. Biggio at third in the pitch. On the ground, Biggio's coming to the plate. And no throw home by Hernandez, and the Astros extend the lead to 4-1. The 91st run batted in for Derek Bell.
Well, a very similar ground ball that the one Brad Ausmus hit. But with no outs in the inning, the Astros are playing it a little safer, making Biggio stay at third base until the ball gets through. This time, Biggio breaks on contact. The high chopper, Hernandez gets the ball right there. He's going to try to make the throw on the run, but he makes the judgment that he doesn't have enough time to get Biggio, makes the throw to first to take the sure out. And Derek Bell with an RBI.
Astros 1 in the first, 1 in the second, 1 in the fourth, and 1 more here in the fifth. They lead 4-1 in the opening game of this series against the Cubs. And now 2-0 to Jeff Bagwell, who has bounced to the mound and popped to short. Popped it up. Playable for the third baseman Gaetti, and the inning is over. But one more Houston run, one hit, one key error, and nobody left. Middle of the fifth, Astros lead by 3.
Saturday baseball game of the week, brought to you by Frost Brewed Coors Light, who reminds you the 3 most important words are, hey, beer, man. By Radio Shack, you've got questions, we've got answers. By Toyota, every day belongs to you. Make it count, Toyota, every day. And by Priority Mail from the U.S. Postal Service.
Well, he hasn't quite got the glove figured out yet, but he's got the cool shades working. Hey, as long as you catch it, we don't care what it looks like. No pictures, just numbers, young man. Make the play.
What do you think he's so locked in on right now? I mean, he looked like he was staring at one thing.
I don't know. Probably the biggest thing on the field, that would be Randy Johnson out there in the middle of that diamond.
I don't know. It might have been a cotton candy vendor he had an eye on.
No, you're probably right. Or that little girl in the next section.
That is a better bet. If not now, give it about 5 years. 0-1 to Lance Johnson, who lifts a fly ball into left field at Moises Salou. 1 away here in the Chicago 5th inning. Randy Johnson has only given up 1 run on 2 hits. That came in the 2nd inning. A leadoff home run by Glenn Allen Hill. He served up a 2-out single to Scott Service. Cubs had 2 on with only 1 out. But Johnson took care of business thereafter, and really the Cubs have not threatened since. They did have Alexander at second base after a leadoff walk into third. But he mowed through Grace, Sosa, and Hill to end the inning.
You see that high pitch count for Randy Johnson up to this point of the ball game. That's not really unusual for a strikeout pitcher to rack up a high total like that early in the ball game. And throughout the last 5 years, Randy Johnson really doesn't show any signs of losing effectiveness until he gets up around the 120 to 125 pitch mark. Then the opponent's batting average starts to go up a little bit.
Two and 1 to Alexander, who has struck out and walked. Johnson still throwing hard. He's been at 95, 96 pretty regularly, consistently here through the early part of the afternoon.
Well, I wouldn't call it pacing himself, but you really get the feeling that there's more in the tank than he's showing. He's just kind of controlling that fastball. I'm sure if he really wanted to cut loose with one, he could get up near triple digits, 97, 98 miles an hour, but a well-placed 94-mile-an-hour fastball is much better than a 97-mile here. You know what? I have no idea where it's going. And there was a time in Randy Johnson's career where that was the book on it. Can throw it through a wall, but might not hit the wall.
Mark Grace waiting in the on-deck circle. His team trailing Johnson and the Astros 4-1. And now to 3-2. On the ground, Biggio is there. 2 away. Let's take a look at our Michelin game summary. Craig Biggio led off the ball game with a home run, the 14th home run of the season, more than any other leadoff batter in the league. Glenn Allen Hill, the only run against Johnson. Second time he's touched up Randy. Moises Salou, the beat goes on for him. And you see the line on Johnson through 4 2/3 innings. Mark Grace has walked and grounded out to Biggio. Hello. Breaking ball that never broke.
The old backup slider. Now, this is a devastating pitch for a major league pitcher, but it's strictly accidental. You try to throw that breaking ball, sweep it out across the plate. It just never takes the break. It continues to ride up and in. The hitter sees the rotation on the ball, recognizes breaking ball, but the pitch never breaks. Well, if you could do that all the time, you'd get a lot of people out.
1-2 now to Grace. And Johnson comes with a fastball that missed outside. Grace trying to keep it alive for Sosa, who's in the on-deck circle. Grace gone on strike 6 of the afternoon by Randy Johnson. first perfect inning of the game. Through 5, 4-1 Houston. Sosa and the Cubs have been silenced thus far today, with the lone exception of a Glenn Allen Hill home run. 4-1 Houston as we go to the 6th inning. Sosa and the Cubs trying to reach the playoffs for the first time since 1989. That was the year they lost in the league championship series before the new playoff format with an extra round in the divisional series. They fell to the San Francisco Giants. That was a series that will forever be remembered as the Will Clark Mark Grace show. First time for both young first basemen at the time, and boy, bright lights, big cities, both stepped up in a huge way for their respective teams.
That was a fun series to watch. Two guys on top of their game going at it.
0-2 to Alou is outside. Of course, Sammy Sosa has never had the opportunity to advance on to the postseason. And that is something he deeply is craving before the end of his 1998 year, a chance to play into the month of October. 2-2 to Alou. Of course, Ernie Banks will forever be remembered as the man who had so many great seasons with the Cubs, never played in the playoffs. Ryne Sandberg had a chance in '84 and '89 to play in the league championship series, but never a World Series. And even though Grace is now the team veteran, the team leader, Sosa is the guy that many begin to talk about when they say, will he be another Ernie Banks? And never have that chance to play at the end of a regular season.
Sammy Sosa set the major league record with 20 home runs in the month of June. Hit one on the first day and the last day of the month. You can see what he's done in the other months this season. 7 so far here in August.
He also set a major league record by hitting 21 home runs in a 30-day period. That was from the 25th of May to the 23rd of June. That one lined hard into left, and Glenn Allen Hill can't get it. And Alou aboard with a base hit to begin the Houston 6th.
We mentioned earlier in the ball game that Glenn Allen Hill's in the lineup for his bat, not his glove. The first tough play he's had to make today, a sinking hooking line drive off the bat of Moises Alou. Gets a glove on it, but can't get the glove around it. Fortunately, he hits it with his bare hand and knocks the ball down, stays right underneath him, and he's able to hold Alou to a single.
So now the batter, Carl Everett.
With 2 strikes, a major league hitter has to improvise sometimes. Moises Alou hits this ball with one hand on the bat. Top hand comes off. He extends that swing, gets the bat out there to hit that pitch, and ends up with a base hit. They're not all textbook swings. Sometimes you have to invent things up there at the plate with 2 strikes.
Low and into Everett, ball 1. Everett is fouled out to the catcher's service and grounded out to Alexander at second base. 0 for 2. Pitch. Fastball in there, a strike, and you saw Everett a little upset with himself for letting that one come right down the chute.
Well, that would have been a good pitch for Everett to hook to the right side of the field. Grace holding Alou on first base. Big hole on the right side. Big hole back up the middle of the field.
One to Everett. Chop foul.
You know, we talk so much about the Astros and what a strong offensive ball club they are. I think a lot of the credit has to go to Tom McCraw, their hitting instructor. They have so many different styles on this Astros team. The very exaggerated crouch of Jeff Bagwell, the very upright stance of Carl Everett. Moises Alou, we saw him very still at the plate, no kind of cocking action to get ready to hit the ball, but Tom McCraw is a hitting coach that is more concerned with situational hitting. What do I need to do right now to help my ball club? Will a ground ball advance a runner? Will a fly ball score a run?
And there's a perfect example. He finds a hole in the right field. A loose coming to third. Throw is not going to be in time. And the Astros beaten on the door again. They have runners on the corners and nobody out in the sixth.
Dangerous proposition running on Sammy Sosa. He's got 12 assists from that right field corner. Moises Alou got a good jump on the ground ball. He sees it's going to go through the right side. He makes a judgment right there. I'm going to third base. Sosa comes up with a good strong throw, just a little bit too late to get Alou at third.
Perhaps two front runners for the MVP award, at least if you buy into the theory that the MVP should come from a winning team. Mark McGwire's Cardinals far down the track. The Cubs 7.5 back in the division, tied atop the wild card, in Houston front runners in the Central. Infield in, runners on the corners, nobody out, and Bill Spires about it. Spires 2 of 2.
Here's Sammy Sosa uncorking that rocket shot to third base. Real nice job in the middle of the infield right there by Jose Hernandez, decoying as if he were going to cut the ball off. That held the batter runner Everett at first base, did not allow him to advance to second.
Lifted into deep left center field, on the run, Johnson. That ball flies into the seats. And Spires in opposite field, 3-run blast. And the Astros have blown this one wide open. They lead 7-1. You brought up the name Bill Spires earlier today, Bobby. Not many people talk about him, but what a job he has done for Houston.
Well, not only with the bat, carrying a 270 plus average coming into play today, a very solid defensive player, but the thing that really makes him a valuable cog on this Astros team, you can look at that fastball down low and away, goes the other way with it. Billy Spires is one of the most intelligent players in baseball. He always is in the right spot. He knows when to try to take the extra base, when to be more cautious. Always has his head in the ball game. A very valuable member of this Astros team that you just don't hear very much about.
On the ground, up through the middle into center field, a base hit by Gutierrez. And the atmosphere is rank as a Bears cage right now at Wrigley Field. Their bullpen has let them down so many times before this season. They've had a couple of good games, at least in a Giants series. But they have given away so many games they should have won. By and large, a lone exception to the rule has been Rod Beck.
But you can't pitch Beck in the fourth inning of a ball game. I mean, some of these guys in the Cubs bullpen are going to have to step it up and, to use a cliche, take the bull by the horns. They really need the middle relievers to step up and eat some innings and keep their team in the ball game. With Don Wengert in the rotation, you know he's a 5 or a 6 inning pitcher. You're going to have to use some bullpen on days he starts. The Cubs have been trying to protect Kerry Wood. They're going to have to use bullpen.
Randy Johnson lines into a double play. Bobby, those tips you were giving him before the game. He finally takes heed and blisters one.
I told him to try to hit the ball in the opposite field. Hits it right to Alexander at second base. A relay throw back to first, just in time. You'll see where this pitch is, though. It's up and on the inside part of the plate, right in the middle of his swing. Johnson, his hitting is not all it's cracked up to be. You finally hit one on the button, you make a double play.
Here's Biggio. A home run, a strikeout, a single, a stolen base, has scored twice. What a player this guy is. Astros all-time franchise leader in runs scored during the decade of the 1990s, second in the major leagues in scoring runs, and 5th in the 1990s in all of baseball and base hits.
He's just a joy to talk to. This is a man that loves to play the game, and as we mentioned earlier when Jerry Hunsaker was in the booth, along with Jeff Bagwell, two superstar caliber players that play the game as if their next paycheck depended on it. The Texas Twister. Second in the league in runs, second in stolen bases, 22 hit by pitch, 165 base hits. He's a constant thorn in the side of opposing teams.
On the ground to the shortstop, Jose Hernandez, and that's that in the Houston sixth inning. 3 runs, 4 hits in the inning. Houston a 7-1 lead. Johnson and Sosa square off when we come back. Sammy Sosa to begin things into Chicago's 6th inning, trailing the Astros 7-1. Again, we welcome those of you watching the New York Mets and the Arizona Diamondbacks. All Houston and Randy Johnson here today at Wrigley Field. Cubs and the New York Mets tied atop the National League wild card race. 7-1 Houston. Sosa leads off in the bottom of the 6th. And it's 1 ball and 1 strike. Sosa popped up to the second baseman his first time up. Struck out in the 3rd, much to the dismay of hundreds out on Waveland Avenue, hoping, waiting, praying for number 50 off the bat of Sosa. Johnson challenged him early in the game, Bobby. Nothing but fastballs. And now the off-speed pitches fooling Sosa in his 3rd at bat.
Constant adjustments. That's all the game of baseball is about. Sammy Sosa got blown away back in the 3rd inning with a series of mid-90s fastballs from Randy Johnson. All fastballs. This at bat, he's seeing that slow breaking.
1-2 to Sosa, 49 home runs. Johnson comes back with a heat, and Sammy fouls it out of play. Randy Johnson making his 5th start with the Astros. He's 3-1, a minuscule 150 ERA. And you see Sosa, 20 of the 49 bombs on the year have come when he has 2 strikes and a count. And that is one area where he has so much improved over the last few seasons.
I think that's because he's improved his ability to hit the breaking ball. With 2 strikes in the past, I mentioned earlier, if you threw Sammy Sosa anything spinning, you had a pretty good chance to strike him out. That's not the case this year. If you throw a breaking ball for a strike in a 2-strike count, he's going to hit it and hit it hard.
2-2 to Sosa, 2 behind Mark McGwire in the chase for the single-season home run record of Roger Maris. On the ground, a high bouncer at Gutierrez, and Johnson for the 3rd time makes it look easy against Sosa. Johnson says, so what? He hasn't had a chance yet to go toe-to-toe with Mark McGwire. Some of you may be asking, will Randy Johnson get that opportunity over the final month and a half of this 1998 regular season? The Astros play the Cardinals 5 times in September. A 3-game series, September 11th, 12th, and 13th in the Astrodome. And then a 2-game series at Busch Stadium in St. Louis, the 22nd and 23rd of September. The Houston Astros, leaders in the National League Central Division. They have just had a remarkable season, trying to go 30 games over 500, and Hill gone looking on strikes. Number 7 of the ball game for Johnson.
That's about the closest thing to an unhittable strike there is. A Randy Johnson fastball at the bottom of the kneecaps, right on the outside corner. You can't hit it, you can't take it. And Johnson with his customary stare down after a strikeout. He's punched out so many hitters, he could get eye strain doing that.
talking about Johnson squaring off with the St. Louis Cardinals. If you just go by the schedule, and of course, there are a number of off days, particularly in late August and early September for Houston, and you never know how Larry Dierker is going to work his rotation. Also keeping in mind that he may want to start to set things for the postseason. But if they continue to go at the pace they're going now, where Johnson throws every 5th day, as Hernandez has gone on strikes, he'll pitch against the Cardinals twice in September. You're watching Fox Sports, home of the 1998 World Series. Will return after this word from your local station.
You're watching Fox Saturday Baseball Game of the Week.
Astros come to bat here in the top half of the 7th inning with a 7-1 lead over the Cubs. It'll be Ausmus, Derek Bell, and Jeff Bagwell against Terry Adams. Adams has given up 3 runs in relief of Don Wengert, who went the first 4+ innings, allowing 4 runs. Randy Johnson has fanned 8. He allowed a run on 2 hits in the 2nd inning, has not allowed a hit in the last 4. And you can only imagine what it's like if you're a Chicago Cub fan sitting here at Wrigley Field watching this game today. I mean, it's not like your heart hasn't been broken dozens of times rooting for the Chicago Cubs, where they have not won a World Series since 1908. And there pretty much says it all. The Cubs, could they have had Randy Johnson? He'll have a long day to think about it. Some of you may wonder where we found Bob Brindley.
That's a former bullpen catcher right there.
That was a kind of condition you were in some 4 years ago before you were rescued by Fox Sports.
Well, that is definitely a seat that you want to monitor your alcohol consumption, because one wrong lean right there and you're down in the tomato garden somewhere.
Well, look at that. That's a pink house. Would you ever paint your house pink?
I doubt it.
I mean, here in Wrigleyville, if you owned a house, maybe.
Oh, in Wrigleyville, yeah. Pink polka dots in Wrigleyville. Well, these people have the wrong idea here. The game is this way. I don't know what's. There must be a game going on in a sandlot over there that's closer than this one. Of course, they're all watching the air show going on over Lake Michigan as the ball game progresses. You may hear the jets roaring over Wrigley Field from time to time. Well, apparently they're a little more interested in the stealth bomber than watching Randy Johnson mow down their Cubbies.
Well, he's a stealth bomber himself. 1-1 to Derek Bell, 1 away, nobody on, and that one bounces up there.
There's one of the Jets that's been buzzing the field here this afternoon. Either that or that's the home run ball that Moises Alou hit, still going.
Bell 1 of 3, knocked in a run with a ground out in the 5th inning against a drawn-in infield, and Biggio broke on contact and was able to score. Hernandez, a shortstop, thought about coming home, but then thought better of it and took the shore out at first base. That made it a 4-1 game in the 5th. And then a 3-run home run by Spires an inning ago gave Houston a 6-run lead. Well, thought that was ball 4. Instead, it's strike 2. Incidentally, leading Arizona 6-4 that game in the bottom of the 5th inning at Shea Stadium. A Cub loss and a New York win, and the Mets have a game lead in the wild card, and that one's by Gaetti into left field. We'd like to remind you, as always, every Saturday throughout the be headed to Yankee Stadium to see the best team in all of baseball.
It'll be interesting to see that team up close and personal. I mean, nobody really having a career year on that Yankees team. Bernie Williams is having an outstanding year offensively, but everybody just having a very solid season. Different hero every day. Tremendous pitching staff.
Got another complete game shutout from David Wells last night. Wells going to 16-2 on the year. Well, you look at that American League Cy Young race, and you can make a strong case for any of the New York Yankees starters. Hideki Irabu has struggled of late. But nonetheless, Irabu with a 3.4 earned run average. As that ball is in the dirt to Bagwell. David Cone has won 18 games. David Wells has 16 wins. Andy Pettitte with 14. The National League Cy Young Award race. I have a feeling this fella who used to wear a Cub uniform named Maddox might get an unprecedented fifth.
You think?
Oh, perhaps. I'm going to give you an idea about the mindset of a Cub fan. When Kerry Wood back in May struck out 20 Houston Astros, and here Wood had made less than a handful of starts at the major league level, some of the local media and the fans screaming, sign Kerry Wood to a long-term contract. We can't allow to happen with Wood that happened with Maddox, where after winning a Cy Young Award, Maddox and the team could not get together on a long-term contract, and he walked out the door with Atlanta, where he proceeded to win 3 more Cy Youngs. Terry Mulholland beginning to get loose in the Chicago bullpen. To tell you that tomorrow you can join Pat Summerall, John Madden, and Matt Millen in San Francisco. A Fox NFL special. Dan Marino, Jimmy Johnson, and the Dolphins take on Steve Young and the Niners. Coverage begins at 4 Eastern, 1 Pacific with Terry, Howie, JB, and our main man, Chris Collinsworth. That's right here on Fox. Who you like, Bobby, in that game? You're one of the great prognosticators, regardless of sport.
Well, normally I go with wildlife on the helmet over all else.
Right.
So the Dolphins, normally would be the pick, but since I lived in San Francisco for 15 years and I know a lot of the 49er players, I got to root for the Niners.
Well, I didn't ask you who you're rooting for. I asked you who you think's going to win. I mean, that's the heart and the head thing.
Yeah, I think the 49ers are going to win. There you go.
Fair enough. Here's Moises Alou. 3 for 3 is Alou. He's down a strike. He singled and scored in the second. Hit a home run to left center field in the fourth, his 37th of the year, his 111th run batted in. And then he singled and scored on the Spires home run in the sixth. 2 on, 1 out, and Adams turns it loose. Fastball upstairs to Alou. Bobby, who do you like in the MVP race? I mean, Alou is having a marvelous year. We've talked a lot about Sosa, and then there's McGuire.
Well, I've said before, I think Mark McGuire should win some kind of award for what he has brought to the game of baseball. He's rejuvenated fan interest in the game. People coming out in large numbers just to watch batting practice.
Look at Alou. He has his 4th hit of the game. And his 2nd RBI. Derek Bell scores to make it 8-1 Houston.
As far as the MVP, I think it's still too early. There's a lot of baseball left, over 30 games left in the season. Anybody could get hot down the stretch and put up some monster numbers. So I think the guys you mentioned would have to be considered the front runners, but it's still a wide open race.
Pitching change will be made. Jim Riggleman walks to the mound. Alou 4 more hits today. Terry Mulholland takes over on the mound. Houston leading 8-1 here in the 7th. They have 2 on and only 1 out.
Mulholland's had a nice year for the Cubs, working mostly out of the bullpen. He felt he had an opportunity to win a starting job with the Cubs coming out of spring training. He did start a couple of ball games, but he's been pitching relief most of the year.
High fly ball into left field, sending Hill to the warning track. He'll make the play, and that's the 2nd down of the inning. Well, the Cubs went into Houston last weekend. They won the opening game of the series, and then in game 2, in extra innings, with 2 away, a comebacker to the mound off the bat of Derek Bell. Mulholland fielded the ball cleanly, turned to make the throw to first base, and airmailed the throw to Mark Grace, allowing the winning run to score. The Cubs won the next day behind Kerry Wood. But the difference in taking 2 out of 3 as opposed to a 3-game sweep. Here's Spires. He's 3 for 3. And that one gets away from service, but neither runner will advance. Spires a single to right in the 2nd inning, single to center in the 4th, and a 3-run home run to the bleachers in left center field off Terry Adams an inning ago.
I mentioned the platoon at third base with Spires along with Sean Berry. Sean Berry having a fine offensive year, 11 homers, 40 RBIs, hitting over 320. Spires, the left-handed part of that platoon, having a great year in his own right.
Strike called on the outside corner to Spires.
You know, sometimes that platoon, a lot of players don't like it. They'd rather be the everyday guy, but many times it's in the best interest of the ball club. You keep both players fresh throughout the course of the season. Gives you some flexibility at that particular position for late inning switches, double switches, pinch hitting, pinch running. And you'd have to say the two-headed monster of Spires and Berry has really done a great job anchoring that hot corner for the Astros.
Well, the Astros not nearly in the same category with New York or Boston or Baltimore or Cleveland or Atlanta as far as team payroll is concerned. In fact, they're not even there with the Cubs. And you can make a strong argument that dollar for dollar, this is the best assembled team in Major League Baseball today.
Well, and the one key ingredient that runs up and down this Astros roster is good speed, at times great speed. Every guy on this roster can run the bases well. They can steal a base if necessary. They can score from first base on a ball hit in the gap. And speed never takes a day off.
This should in the inning. Alexander will play to Grace, and that's it. So Randy Johnson goes back to the mound in the 7th with an 8-1 lead. Earlier this week, Steve Lyons from our Fox Saturday pregame show singing "Take Me Out to the Ball Game," a summer-long tribute to our dear friend, the late Harry Carey. And I can only hope that Steve Lyons will not go back home anytime soon. Steve and his wife Krista just had a darling baby girl, their first Alexandra. Congratulations to them. I don't think Steve's singing is going to gently put her to sleep at night.
The lullabies will have a sharp edge to them.
Yes, they will. Did you used to sing to your 2 children at night?
Oh, absolutely.
Aerosmith or something like that?
Blues. Puts them right to sleep.
Gave them the blues. 1-2 to Scott Service. Maybe Dad will sing a few bars for that little one.
Well, he's still hanging in there.
He's got the blues, there's no doubt about it.
That's the ugliest weather vane I've ever seen.
I mean, what do you think that fella's thinking about right now?
How the heck am I going to get off of this roof?
What is going through his mind, Bobby? I mean, you can relate to a fella like that. You've been there before.
Boy, it sure seemed like a good idea when I climbed up here. Well, there is a fire department right next door. They may have to run a hook and ladder over there to get that guy off the roof.
But how's he getting a fresh cold one? Because you know he's not nursing that thing for very long. Service went too far, and that is a 9th strikeout for Randy Johnson. Let's take a look at our Toyota game summary, where it's been all Johnson and the Astros here today. 3 home runs in the ball game, Moises Alou, who has 4 hits, which ties a career high. You see the numbers on Johnson. And Billy Spires, a big day. He has 3 hits, 3 runs batted in. Jeff Blauser bats for the first time. Fly ball into right field. Bell's there, and an easy 7th inning for Randy Johnson. He allowed 2 hits in the 2nd inning, nothing since. Well, the day appears to be over for Randy Johnson with an 8-1 lead as Houston bats in the top of the 8th inning. Pete Incaviglia has moved into the on-deck circle. Johnson's spot due up 2nd in the inning. And Johnson about to go, barring a Cub rally. 4-1 since coming over from Seattle. And that's into right center field. A base hit by Gutierrez. And the numbers on Johnson. Dominating today. He only allowed 2 hits, and they both came in the same inning. The Chicago second, when he served up the 1 run, a solo home run to Glenn Allen Hill. Retired the last 11. Did walk 3. Was wild early in the game, Bobby, and fan 9.
Well, it wasn't a typical dominating Randy Johnson performance. He made the big pitches when he had to. He let his defense work behind him for the most part. But still, what a boost for the Houston Astros. You make a move like that to pick up a marquee name player like Randy Johnson. He comes on board. If he goes out and loses his first 2 starts, gets knocked out of the box early, suddenly that trade doesn't have the same emotional impact. But he comes out roaring, wins his first ball game, back-to-back complete game shutouts in his next 2, and on his way to winning his 4th game here today.
Well, you just can't say enough about Jerry Hunsaker able to pull the trigger on that deal. Who gave the Houston Astros a snowball's chance to get Johnson? Nobody. All you heard about was the Yankees or Cleveland. Maybe another big market team, if you will, sneaking into the mix. The Dodgers. Whispers about Johnson going there early in the season. And here he is in Houston. And has certainly made the Astros a bona fide contender. They can match up with anybody. San Diego and Atlanta. They have to be mentioned in the same breath now with those 2 ball clubs. I mean, if you're one of those teams, and by the end of today, the New York Mets, who now lead Arizona, incidentally, in the bottom of the 6th inning at Shea 8-4. If the season were to end today, that would mean the Mets would be the wild card team. So Atlanta would then have to square off with the Houston Astros in round 1 of the divisional playoff, best-of-5 series, with a prospect of facing Randy Johnson 3 times if it went to 5 games. Well, for a Coors game break, let's go to our buddy Chip Carey at our Fox Network Center.
All right, Tommy, rough day for the Cubs. It could get even rougher. The Mets. Brian McRae, a former Cub, rips a shot into the gap, scoring 2 more New York Mets. They came from 4-0 down with a 6-run second. They now lead the D-backs 8-4. As you said, if New York wins this one and the Cubs lose, Mets wild card lead would be a full game. Back to you.
Incaviglia gone on strikes, and now back to the top of the order in Biggio. You know, you visit with the Atlanta Braves people, and Bobby, we did the Braves and the Dodgers on Fox Saturday Baseball last weekend. And you talk to Bobby Cox, you talk to the pitching coach Leo Mazzoni, and they talk so much about how they have just superb pitching depth. They're not being arrogant about it. It's a fact. I mean, you have Kevin Millwood, double-digit winners, your 5th starter, Denny Nagel, your number 4 starter. And depth clearly shows up over the long regular season, 162 games. Well, the thing that really worries a team like Atlanta is when the depth, by and large, is taken away. And that it is in a best-of-5 format, a best-of-7. You still have the advantage with the depth. Best-of-5, different ballgame.
When that team can bring back their ace and number 2 starter twice in that 5-game series, your pitching staff doesn't have to be very deep. If you've got 2 guys that you can run out there and feel confident in picking up a victory twice in a series, like you said, that takes the depth factor right out of the ball game. Billy Wagner, the left-handed closer for the Astros, down blowing bubbles in the bullpen. Figures to be a day off for him today, unless Larry Dierker chooses to give him an inning of work. just coming back from that horrific line drive off of his ear at Bank One Ballpark in Phoenix, Arizona, just a few weeks ago. And he's entertaining the fans out there. One of the great things about Wrigley Field, the fans are right down there with the players, which is not always good when you're down there trying to warm up and go into a ball game.
Especially if you remember the Cub bullpen, the way they've been going lately.
The fans are very helpful down there in that visiting bullpen. Remember in my days as a bullpen coach with the Giants, we'd get a guy up and he'd start warming up, and just in a very calm voice, a guy would lean over the wall there and say, "You're not really going to bring this guy in the game, are you?"
Into right field, a base hit by Ausmus. 15th hit of the game by the Astros. And we're in the 8th inning. Now you want to keep the dial right here on Fox, because tomorrow it is Turn Back the Clock night. World's Funniest, then the series premiere of Holding the Baby, followed by an all-new Simpsons and the premiere of That 70s Show. And all of that leads up to the X-Files. 7 Eastern, 6 Central on Fox tomorrow. And Bobby, you'll be able to check it out.
I hope so. If not, I'll take it.
Well, the last time I checked, you don't have to worry about working. 2 on, 2 down for Derek Bell.
I didn't make the schedule. I just live by it.
Astros leading 8-1. And Derek Bell takes inside. Sammy Sosa is due up 4th when the Cubs come to bat in the 8th inning. And he will not have to worry about facing Randy Johnson, who tied him in knots. Sammy did not hit the ball out of the infield in 3 at-bats against Johnson today. Check swing fouled off, 2-1 to Bell.
It looks like he'll be facing another left-hander. Mike Magnante was the pitcher warming up in the Astros bullpen. Apparently he's ready to go into the ball game and has stopped throwing down there.
Including today, the Cubs have 34 games remaining. Bell on the ground to short, and he'll get the force at second to retire the side. We may see Sosa in the 8th. Don't go away. They'll be facing the new Houston pitcher. 8-1 Astros in front.
Journey begins.
Going to look at Grant Park, downtown Chicago. Meanwhile, Richard Hidalgo is taking over in right field for Derek Bell. The Astros in front 8-1. And now on to pitch left-hander Mike Magnante.
Good look at his numbers on the season. A left-handed specialist, figures to probably close out this ball game unless he runs into any kind of trouble. You talk about guys that like to work at home. He has not given up an earned run in a home game since June 20th. They love him in the Astrodome.
Yes, sir.
And I've always said, if you're going to do good either at home or on the road, do good at home. Because the fans on the road aren't going to cheer.
Lance Johnson to lead things off in the Chicago 8th inning, and Magnante deals him a strike. Johnson, Alexander, Grace, and should we go any further, it'll be Sammy.
I'm goofy for Sammy. Some people are just plain goofy.
I was getting ready to say, you would fit that category.
I tell you, Sammy Sosa's been great for the game of baseball this year with his attitude, his smile, the way he's gone about this chase of the home run record. And we saw opening the game, charging out to his position in right field. The fans love him here. The kids look up to him. And it goes without saying, he is a national hero in the Dominican Republic.
Well, the USA Today just had a wonderful article on Sammy Sosa about how he gives so much back to his native homeland and those who are not so privileged in the Dominican Republic in every way, shape, or form. A third world country if there ever was one.
The story went on to tell about Sammy Sosa as a youngster shining the shoes of former major leaguers Joaquin Andujar and George Bell, some of the greats of the game that came from the Dominican Republic, and Sammy was just a youngster hanging around outside the ballpark. Shining shoes. Said Joaquin Andujar was a good tipper.
Yeah.
I guess that's hot sauce. Those are two of the hottest hitters in all of baseball right there, and where they rank in the National League in those categories. Lou's had the best of it today, but Sammy's going to get another whack at it.
Well, you know, as you look at a crowd of 39,886, by and large, the suspense of the outcome in this game has been all but taken away. But they want to stick around and see Sammy hack at it one more time. There's ball four to Johnson. We asked Sammy Sosa. He's had so much fun talking about the Roger Maris record and what it means to him.
I never think myself that I'm trying to catch Roger Maris or nobody. I'm always say to myself that the man is Mark McGwire. But I'm in the middle of the pennant race. And when you're in the middle of the pennant race, you have to play different. You cannot go out there for a record or trying to do everything for yourself, because you play for the pennant race and you're in the middle of the pennant race and you got to be ready every day. You have to go out there and do what you got to do every day.
Sammy certainly will say that at length about how he wants to get to the postseason. Let's be honest about it. I mean, there is obviously pressure on Mark McGwire. There's pressure on Sammy Sosa. But when you have to deliver with your team's fortunes hanging in the balance as every game becomes so precious through the end of August and September, there's that much more pressure, you have to believe, Bobby, on Sosa.
And that's why I think Sosa has handled it so well, because the emphasis in Sammy's mind has been on the pennant race. Keep the Cubs in the race. You know, a lot of times if your team falls out of contention and you're chasing an individual record, you know, for example, with a runner at second base, you may come up and go ahead and try to hit a home run. If you're in a pennant race, you have to advance that runner to third base, and that's what Sammy has done this year. He's taken the base hits to right field. He's taken more walks this year than he has in the past, doing what it takes to help his team win ball games. Not that Mark McGwire is not doing that, or Ken Griffey Jr. is not doing that, but Sammy's really bearing down on helping the team win games to get into the postseason. If the record happens to come, that's just gravy.
3-1 now to Manny Alexander. Of course, Sammy Sosa, ever since coming to the Chicago Cubs, where they play most of their games nationally as far as cable television is concerned, started walking down to the end of the Cubs third base dugout and delivering a sign. Many wondered what that was all about, and we asked him about it. He's even added a little twist during the '98 season.
Every time I hit a home run, I'm blowing kissing to my mother. One, I love you, Mama, and a B for Harry Carey. So, you know, everybody liked that. I mean, you know, this is something that I'm starting a few years ago, you know, and people like it. Now that I'm in my role, people like it a little bit more.
Part of that article in the USA Today had Sammy, a picture of Sammy's mother who sits in front of the television watching in the Dominican. And the number is phenomenal for Sosa this season, particularly that walks department. I mean, the other ones are the ones you read about every day. But by drawing more walks, scoring more runs, getting on base, still striking out a lot, but not nearly as much as he did in the past. He is a very different offensive player than he used to be. Magnante walks the first two batters he faces, and the Astros have seen enough of that with an 8-1 lead.
It's all set up with the first pitch on the outside corner. This first pitch fastball gets ahead of him, strike one. Now he's going to try to go up the ladder. Gets Sammy to chase that one. Throws the next one a little higher. Goes up there one more time trying to get Sammy to chase. Tries to go back to that outside corner again, and then gets Sosa to swing over the top of a high fastball and ground it to third base. All fastballs.
Sammy Sosa is upset about being 0 for 4 in the game, but as we heard from Sammy a moment ago on that pitch in the dirt, good play by Ossis, he's also well aware of the fact you look to the center field scoreboard, manually operated scoreboard, incidentally, and the New York Mets hold an 8-4 lead in the 8th inning at Shea over the Diamondbacks. And if that stands, and this Houston lead turns into an Astro 8-1 ball game, Houston in front. Cubs come to bat in the bottom of the 9th inning. We were having a little fun with our buddy Mark Grace yesterday, and he's a big football fan, and he was asking, are Madden and the boys ready to roll for another season of NFL on Fox? And he wanted to, he wanted to talk about that All Madden award and whether or not a baseball player could get involved with that. Here's what he said.
To be Madden-esque, though, you'd probably have to play in a rainout or something, something to that effect. So I don't know if baseball is Madden-esque, but if there was ever an all Madden team in baseball, I think I'm nasty and ugly enough to be on.